first on the agenda is adoption of minutes of April 21st. For a motion.
I move that we adopt the minutes of April 21st.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion about those minutes? Hearing none, may we vote please?
Been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes of April 21st, 2025 as presented. Ms. Moyer?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes.
Minutes are adopted.
There's some quotes, April 29th, those minutes are not available yet. We'll get to those at the next meeting.
Special meeting, you mean? Are not available yet?
I now entertain a motion to adopt payment of bills in the amount of $57,046.32. Broken down general fund, 927201, cemetery fund 258825, fire fund 37,651.07, road 7,534.99. Is there a motion?
I move we approve payment of bills.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding those payments? Hearing none, may we vote please?
It's been moved and seconded to approve payment of bills in the amount of $57,046.32 as enumerated. Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Ms. Moyer?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes.
Motion's approved.
Thank you. Item number 4, correspondence. Any correspondence in or out of this period that would like to be brought before the board? Hearing none, we will move to item number 5. This is public addition to the agenda. Well, first off, our Zorski's here.
Always okay.
Oh, there we are.
Here, Tony speaking for us, Tony Scariano.
Oh, hey, Tony. Nice to see you, bud. Okay, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us and listening to us. As you know, we've had a great relationship with Miami Township for decades, many years. We're very appreciative. But we come to you tonight to ask your help. And we would like to reconsider the lease you have on the old firehouse in Clifton. We have a very great need. We have been the lucky recipients of a very large grant to fix our opera house and our schoolhouse. The state moves very quickly. We've had to move things very quickly. Quite frankly, we needed the storage space. So that's one of the considerations, as well as things in the future. Our costs have gone up, insurance-wise, maintenance, whatever, because you're in a lease deal, so you know it's like $1 a year for. So it's costing us quite a bit, and we definitely desperately need it. And with the addition of the possible coming of House Bill 331. It will afford Clifton another building to show that we are self-sufficient, that we can survive and be a functioning village. But with that, we need your help into considering breaking the lease, quite frankly. And just wanted to see how the township felt about that, because we do have a need. We need to make some repairs to it and some other things as well.
So, forgive me, we lease it from you
Yes.
for $1 a year?
Yeah.
It's a 99-year lease, right?
I think it's some years, I don't know. It's a long one.
Maybe 50 left.
And back then, honestly, it was a win-win. It was all done in good faith, out of necessity for both of our parties. But you guys have obviously grown, thankfully, and you have your own nice space now, and we, quite frankly, need the space and need to be able to function with it. So we're just asking you to please consider it.
This is not out of the blue, Anthony. We have discussed this somewhat. I've discussed it with the acting assistant fire chief. And do you have anything to add, or should I just go?
How fast are you looking to move to break this?
The contractors are here, yes.
The contractor's hazmat starting this week or next week. We've been given notice, so we've had to move everything out so the hazmat crews can come in. So we need the space now.
Yeah. We need every inch we can. And they will have the properties tied up for at least a year, I'd say. It's a very large project.
Oh, I know it is.
I assume the problem is the stuff that's in there. Is that why the look I see on your face, there's a lot?
Well, there's a mutual agreement between Cedarville and us that we would try to work on that building, and then we moved in here and things happened and that kind of went to the wayside. But I was in talks with Chief Miller about maybe trying to revitalize that.
There is an antique fire truck there. A couple of them.
We'd be willing to leave those and even help fix them up, put them on display for history's sake.
That's
That will help. I mean, that's one less thing.
in the building? You live in the building?
Yep.
Oh. Yeah, you have an idea of what you're gonna use the building for, huh?
Yes, storage primarily at first, and then eventually as a part of a smaller community center. It needs to be functioning and well used. Again, we'd like to see it be self-sustaining for lots of reasons, let alone the insurance and the maintenance. It was just outpaced us. We're a tiny town. So again, we're just asking.
I want to throw it right quickly back to you. Do you have any objection to breaking the lease and removing everything from the building? All right, then I'll put it to the board. Does the board have any objections to breaking the lease and letting them utilize the building more so than we have in mind?
I have no objection, and I assume all the logistics will be handled between Assistant Chief and...
I have no objection. I repeat that I'm sort of awed by those two vehicles. Except I only remember one.
Yeah, no, they're very cool. They should be fixed up and displayed nicely from time to time.
So what do we legally need to do?
We need to legally make a motion to dissolve the lease between Village of Clifton and Miami Township Fire Rescue.
I move that we dissolve the lease between the Village of Clifton and Miami Township or Miami Township Fire and Rescue?
Miami Township Fire Rescue.
For the fire station in Clifton, Ohio.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second that, although I prefer the word cancel than to dissolve, but it doesn't matter.
We'll let Cindy purge that. How's that? Okay. Any other questions, concerns?
Will you give us about a week to get our tanker, release the tanker out of there? I know there's a big old prop in there. We gotta figure out where to put it. So it can take us a little bit of time.
Absolutely.
Been moved and seconded to cancel and or dissolve the lease between Village of Clifton and the Miami Township Fire and Rescue for the Clifton Fire Station. Ms. Moyer?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes, that's
Motion approved.
That's quite a deal, really. I mean, consider we've had this lease since 1936.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I know that
And congratulations on all the grants that have come through and the work that's planned, and Clifton's going to be a much nicer place to live.
Thank you.
I don't envy you the amount of work that you personally will end up having to do with coordinating absolutely all of this.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's real town.
Okay, we have one more item for fire department before we move on.
on agenda items, I sent a couple emails. Oh, okay, I see on new business, the Girl Scout.
Okay, we received a proposal, I guess it is, for adoption from our consultant, President Council, regarding various and sundry fire department items that he feels we should institute. Does the board want me to read the whole thing?
Well, it seems to.
Really very internal, but.
It seems to only, seems like there's really only one item on there, and that is, as we conduct a search for a chief, that our most excellent records keepers, Cindy Powell, will be contracted with to do various things, like receive things, organize them, send back, email, telephone, acknowledge. Cindy, is there anything?
If I could,
Okay.
but Mr. Cosner, Fred and I have been exchanging emails the last few days. We worked out the parameters of the position, what he would expect me to do with receiving the applications, responding to the applicants. He will be drafting the email responses and any letters of acceptance, moving forward, all of that sort of thing. I'm just going to be coordinating and making sure that all records are kept.
Yeah.
He laid out hours, suggested a rate. I am amenable to his proposal at your discretion.
So, we'll not read it. Okay. I would therefore entertain a motion to adopt Fred Kauser's recommendations regarding various and sundry things, mostly dealing with the project of hiring a new fire chief. Is there a motion?
So
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding that? And then maybe.
Well, let me just say, I'm impressed that you're only getting $1,000, if that.
I was impressed at that amount, so I'll come in between it. As odd as it is to take the vote on my own position. Been moved and seconded to adopt the proposal of Mr. Frederick Kauser, the services of Recorder Cindy Ball spoke during the record keeping for the hiring of the interim fire chief. I'll clean that up. Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes.
Motion approved. Thank you.
Thank
I
you
hope
very
to
much.
meet him someday.
I'm sure you will. Anything else for fire? We are going to move cemetery and road to next meeting.
And really,
Are you skipping?
Needs report.
Do you want me to go roll
Routine
myself?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, it's okay. That was my fault, I didn't speak up. All right, so we last met, had 40 runs. We sent three of those runs were mutual aid. We received one, we had 11 fire and 25 EMS. Overtime's been limited right now, so we work on a our next meeting, I'll give you any type of fatigue report. I'm going to begin working with Lieutenant Turner on our inspection program, starting with tracking businesses and updating the contact information so we can get more involved in that. So while we're waiting to get into the drug bag program, we'll need to order some drugs. We've kind of exhausted a few with some of our higher acuity calls we've had lately. Nothing major, just a few little things here and there. New Medicaid ones still on schedule to be completed next year. And then I'm going to file the paperwork with the American Heart Association to continue our involvement as a training center. So I'll probably be taking that over. So, part of the list that I sent you, as far as our operation practices, I can read all through all of them if you'd like me to. Give you the highlights.
Maybe the highlights.
For sure. So I've updated some run cards to kind of move up, as you can see, the township, kind of get here a little bit sooner on the run card. I'm not sure if you recall them. Especially for the different zones. So Miami Township broken up in different fire zones. That's how we kind of move trucks around to where we're getting what dictates the type of truck that's responding. So the village is going to get Xenia City, and then the township's going to get Xenia City and Springfield Township, depending on the north side or the south side.
Mutually.
Yep. Working with Lieutenant Klein to establish a fair working training schedule involving the surrounding agencies, kind of a joint, maybe like once a quarter, 2 times a year kind of deal. Cedarville does currently utilize our forcible entry door, so we can count that for the joint training centers. They insisted in purchasing that back in 2018. And then Chief Cross has also reached out to set up a joint training hosted by us for wilderness search sometime in the future. So Medicaid one's still Atlantic, the coolant leak sticks. And then it had no AC, so they started diving into that. Compressor shot and blowing metal pieces through the lines, so they got to clean that out. Tanker 82 is now out of service, so it's got a compressor issue. So it's not building air, and the roof ending is still leaking after being fixed twice.
Third time's a charm.
We'll see what happens. There's my budget report for the last 2 weeks, not a whole lot, just a few little things, uniform stuff.
Purchasing of new uniforms. Purchasing of new uniforms.
Well, that's just morning badges. They're just little black bands that go over our badges. So, and then the attached policies, which Fred wanted me to send to you too, or send to the board. I don't know if you want to approve those
So
or.
a uniform policy.
Yep, the uniform policy. I mean, ideally, I'm asking for a budget line of $9,000 to 10,000, so I can purchase uniforms.
How much?
$9,000 to 10,000 to purchase uniforms for staff and kind of keep that going on a regular basis. That way, we always have fresh uniforms. You know, have guys come in and wear other department stuff. They ran out of uniforms, t-shirts, things like that. And I've also laid out exactly what said, like full-time and part-time would be getting.
For uniforms. And I wasn't clear if Fred had put that in the fire department budget this year, in the, so that's another 10,000.
And then the overtime distribution force policy, which will be going out tomorrow.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing all that was asked of you. Wonderful, in such a timely manner.
That's all that I.
Anything else for fire?
No.
As I say, we'll hold off on cemetery and road for this meeting and move to fiscal officer's report. Fiscal officer?
I don't think I have anything else other than the usual. Any questions?
Yep. Okay, thank you.
And it says Maryland report on Star Fund, but I have, when we get to this discussion of the TLT resolution, I have, I think, 5 or 6 slides, and that will just be, that kind of fits into that discussion. So I'll just do that at that time when I get my chance to speak on that.
Okay. Anything else for fiscal officer?
Oh, just that the bank balance, I forgot to change the date, but the amount is as of today, not the previous meeting date, just FYI.
Okay. $1.8 million.
Move to item 10, zoning administrator's report. He also has been asked to hold up his normal report, normal personal report until our next meeting. Okay. Does anybody know what the rescheduled zoning meeting? Oh, I know what that is.
You asked him to come there.
Yeah. Don?
Yeah, I would call that this community input on solar exclusion. And we had scheduled that for this Wednesday. It didn't get posted in the paper or on our website. So I would like to schedule it for the 21st. 21st? How many key people? That's a Wednesday at 7.
May, just to be sure. May
Yeah.
21st.
I'm probably available. I'm interested, if we're going to have it, to be published robustly, or,
So this is before asking again the county commission to ban utility scale.
I think that's the wrong word. The Senate bill says to create an exclusion zone.
Okay, excuse me. The exclusion zone for utility scale, it's about over 300 acres roughly. That we've had for 2 years, ending July 1st. Basically, the southeast part of the township, south and east of Little Miami River. Once we ask that of the county commission, they have a process they have to go through. Make one
If
more.
we ask it of the town.
Yes, if we
And,
You're right, I'm making an assumption that perhaps the public input will change.
well, SB 52 provides for the county commission to, any place in the county to name it an exclusion zone where industrial solar can't go. And they kicked it back to the townships and say, we'll do it at your will. And several townships made their entire township an exclusion zone. We made just a small portion, and we thought of this idea, asked them to put a time limit on it, to give us 2 years to educate ourselves, look into some of the things that people were bringing up, and then make a decision. But I didn't get the idea. So what you would be seeking was to make that permanent or to renew it as a temporary?
I'm interested in permanent, but at our last meeting, you said you weren't in support of it at all, and Chris said he was in support of continuing on a 2-year basis. And informally, County Commission has said to me, we'll do whatever you recommend.
Brandon Huddleston did not say, why did you just make permanent? I thought that's what you reported me. I mean, are they impatient with it?
He read our minutes and saw that there was disagreement.
Okay.
He said, apart from my recommendation, we'll follow your preference.
May 21st.
Okay.
So we're certifying a date.
May 21st, 7 p.m. in this room.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I guess we'll go to the meat of the matter. Discussion regarding the adoption of resolution 2025-12, or perhaps 13. Before we do that, I have a couple things of business that I need to work on. Like last meeting that we had, I'd like to get a read from the room, please. I'd like to know by show of hands, those people here who live in the unincorporated area outside the village limits of Miami Township. I can get all the way around. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I'm curious as to why you're taking that census.
For my information only. Let's see, I just mentioned that the reason we're going to discuss, so I'm going to do that. Now, like all good committees and boards, we have some rules for this evening, for a meeting. I'm sure everyone's aware that according to the Ohio Revised Code, the legislature of the state of Ohio, any public meeting of any commission or board in the state of Ohio is an open public meeting. The public is welcome to walk through the door, have a seat, and be here for as long as the meeting's in session. What they don't approve, however, by legislation is the ability for the public to speak at any meeting that they attend. That ability is granted solely by the Board of Trustees, the Board of County Commissioners, whomever else. Historically, this board has always welcomed any public comment that any member of the public who decides to come to our meeting wishes to express. And I believe that's our intention this evening. We've got all night, we have nowhere to go, so we can have as much discussion as possible. Second rule is we're going to be civil. If there's any conversation of a personal nature between any member of the public, either between themselves or the board, or anything from the board to other board members or members of the public, that person will be stopped and asked to hold their conversation at that point. In the hope of brevity, which may go out the window, we're going to ask that anyone who speaks, please speak on the subject, and please be as brief as possible. Plus, you're going to get one opportunity to speak. We're not going to go back and forth between members of the public.
Did the board make these rules?
No, I did. I'm the chair. I have that ability. So that's the way it goes. That's about it for rules. So let's open the floor. Anybody who would like to speak,
I mean,
please raise their hand.
are we not going, I'd like to know what
We
kind
framed
of
the discussion a little
Are
bit.
we
Some
going-
people weren't here last
Are we
week.
going through the resolution, or do the trustees get to speak first and then the public? I don't know.
Certainly, if you'd like to speak
I
first,
mean,
be my guest.
This resolution just came out Sunday morning, so I'm not sure how the public could speak. I did make a copy for people, and it's hard to read when it's just account numbers. So I went ahead and put the fund names on there. I mean,
But the first part of the resolution, for the most part, is what seems to have been the crux of the discussion at our last meeting.
You mean rather than the
Well-
details of which line item?
Yeah.
No. No, there's a lot of details in it. I mean, I'll wait my turn.
It is now your turn.
Really?
Yep.
He's got a count.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
okay. I didn't realize I thought I was going to be responding, so, but that's cool. And I'm taking a second. We'll go this. First of all, this is about. Let me see if I have I don't know. Since there hasn't been an introduction, I guess I'll give an introduction. This is about,
Hey, sir, could you step aside one more the other place? Other people watching here too. Thank you. Appreciate it.
you can sit over here. Right here. Or here. So this discussion is, this resolution is about whether or not we will donate well, it says 113,000 here, but it confuses me, Chris, because when you place things into the line item to actually give to them, it totals up to 127,000. And on the Sundays when I had this, is that true? Is it 127,000?
Yeah.
It's not 113, it's increased to
No, but
127,000.
113 of the 127,000 would be used for the contribution to our contribution to the land trust.
Well, but it says that you're going to put 127,000 in here
For that use.
for that use, for the use of the, donate.
113,000 of that would be for the.
But then it says that the items in this fund will be used for the exclusive purpose to fund Miami Township Board of Trustees' commitment to partner with the Tecumseh Land Trust.
The commitment's 113,000.
Okay, well then I'll start there. So
And the last line says, all funds not used will be going back to the general
then
fund.
why are we putting 127,000 in there, giving you permission to give them 127,000? But then
Giving
you're,
us permission to give them.
no, you're giving yourself
What did we
permission.
commit to?
You're giving yourself permission to put all 127,000 in. I'm just saying.
The power of your PowerPoint is looking at the big picture, and then one point of it would be this line item. Why do you want to start with 113 versus 127? I'd like to see your overall summary.
Okay. So the proposal is to pay this. I was gonna start there, but we don't have a foundation yet, so
Okay.
it's my floor, so I'll go ahead and do it. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna take the money to that the 113 or 127 or whatever it is.
113.
How do we get that money to give to Tecumseh Land Trust if we were to do that? The first thing that we're going to do, we're going to take all the reserves from our general fund, 92,000, that's all we have left, and we're going to put it in a line item for TLT. Then we're going to, apparently there's some unbudgeted funds in the general fund. Would we just get in some cemetery contract work? Is that what happened?
Mhm.
13,000, we're just going to go ahead and encumber that and put that in the TLT gift fund. And then we'll, this next one, we're going to take some, oh no, that's not part of it. We're going to then take some money we would have used. We're going to take 7,000 in contracting for the Clifton Cemetery out of the general fund, and we're going to put that in the TLT gift fund. And then we're going to take $5,000 out of our zoning inspector's salary and give that to the TLT gift fund. We've told Brian, who's not here tonight, that he can work up to 20 hours a week. I wrote that fund for exactly 20 hours a week, so if this came through, we'd have to, but we did by resolution that he could work 20 hours a week. I suppose we'd have to, not by resolution, by motion, I'd have to undo that and tell him he could only work 16 hours a week because we're taking 5,000 of his salary from him. And then 10,000, this one really concerns, and that goes in the TLT gift fund. And then this 10,000 really concerns me because it comes from this weird little fund, and when the 10,000 you're gonna pull out and put in the TLT, it comes from this weird little line item at the end. And Gina, I'm gonna have to say, Gina's done a stellar job. She's really trying, and we had to close up that messy year last year. And there was a fund where you were told just put everything in that last line item, let's close out this year. It had multiple things. It was a big other. Everything we had in there, was a legitimate cost. We spent $20,000 in that line item in the general fund. And Chris, I don't know if we'll need those things this year. Not even sure what they are. We haven't worked it out yet.
Why don't you ask your quiz boss?
But,
No. She'd be the one to know.
well, there's several payments to US Bank and different things that she doesn't know right now because it was a hard year and we're working to get, hopefully if we have enough money left in our general funds, we'll work to get you paid. The auditors are offering paid people to assist us in that. So you want to take that fund where we don't know if we need it or not.
We don't need it.
Why don't we need it, Chris?
Fiscal officer said we don't need it.
Is that true?
I'm going by her
No, she said she
recommendation.
doesn't, that those things might belong other places. Anyway, there's $20,000 we spent last year. Chris would like to take $10,000 of that and put it in a line item for the TLT gift fund. So that's a total of $127,000 for TLT. And in the last part, be it resolved that we can't use all of that for an easement. We can. You say you're not going to, yet
We'll
you
use
tried
the
very.
We'll use the committed amount,
Yet-
like it says.
But then can I ask you, if it's only 113, can we give Brian back his $5,000?
We can do anything we want with the rest of it.
I mean, will you, if you weren't going to spend it, why did you put it in there? You don't have to answer that now. I just
It
have,
doesn't look like we zeroed out anything.
you don't want it to look like we zeroed out anything.
Well, we
Okay,
didn't zero out the,
so I just have a few things. I don't know how much. This were our, after we made all our appropriations for the year, we received this from the auditor. I just want to give you an idea what it looks like. Here's our general fund, and here's our, we had a little bit of a carryover.
We had 147,000 here.
Yeah, and then we should have had, that's not true, all sources. Oh, but from also, it doesn't show that the revenue. With the revenue of 211,000, we get 358,000 that we could use. We appropriated 266,000, and we had 92 left over, okay? Now, I went through this with this expense report, every single thing we bought from the general fund last year. And I tried to make it as skinny as possible because it worries me that we're spending 266,000 and we only take in about 230. So I was thinking, oh my God, I haven't done this before, but we got 92,000, right? So let's tighten up our ship. If we go over, we'll get some new things. We're getting cybersecurity finally and some other things. So I'm thinking maybe we'll go over 10 or 20 or 30,000 and then we'll have some carryover for next year and then we'll make improvements. And then the next year we'll do better. Maybe some new houses we've built. Maybe our revenue will go up a little bit, right? But we have 2 or 3 years with this carryover to turn this around in the parking lot, right? But it still kept me up at night because I don't know how to pay the bills. I don't know what something happens when you go through your carryover, how you pay that, and then prices keep going up. So when I found out that Chris intends to take the entirety of our reserves, it made me terrified, and it still makes me terrified. Okay? But that's not enough. Our carryover is not enough. So Chris went through this thing that I budgeted very carefully. Here's our appropriations. And he grabbed 35,000 more things, like the zoning inspector's salary, like the cemetery contracting work, and skinning this down, skinnier, and then took away the general fund. The reserve. And I'm just going to tell you, it terrifies me. I don't know what it's going to look like. We have, let me go on. But you'll see we have 2 fire funds, 2191, 2181, a total of $1.6 million budget for the fire fund, and we have 359,000 reserved there. So here it is. So for the fire station, the general accepted principle for government reserves is to hold 3 months of operation expenses on hand. For the fire station, which is a $1.6 million budget, that's $396,000. Right now we have $359,000. So we're doing pretty good. We're pretty good on the fire fund for the reserves we need for basic accounting practices. Oh, 59, I said 69. For the general fund, that equates to 66,000. So we should have 66,000. Now we're overspending, and we've been overspending for a couple of years, so but we're doing good. We have 92,000, as I said, based on the 25 budget numbers of 266. So we're doing better, but this is what's going away. This is what is being proposed that we gift away. Okay? Here's some budgetary concerns I have. We need IT and security. We're not in compliance. We had a computer wiped by an employee this year. Finally, this is new this year. We wish we could have a payroll service. We've had complaints for years. The fire department will tell you, have we had any trouble with payroll over the years? You guys are saying that mildly. It's a dream. It's part of our recommendation from our consultant. It takes some things out of Gina's hands. It'll make sure that the federal and state and local taxes are being paid right, that the pension fund is being paid right. So that's a dream that we will get out of that general fund, but now we're skinny. And I can't remember if but the fire station could pick up some of that too. So that's not all general. A lot of that could go to fire. We had increasing insurance costs of 7.5%, which I need to renegotiate it and got that down to 13.5%. I'm thinking of accounting support for the fiscal officer. There are some things we need to do. We've not been reconciling right. You don't want to. We have a lot of challenges. I've talked to the state audit. Well, they contacted me about an audit. And they said, let's talk about some of these things. Do you need help? You guys need help. Here's the number of Tim McCoy at the Western office of the state auditors. And he sent an email, and he'll give you 4 free hours. He'll come and help get us on track. And after that, you would have to pay. So that's another thing in my mind. What's our priority? Our priority is to get our fiscal office straight. So let's do that. So that worries me. Overall inflationary pressure, prices going up. And as Kellyanne pointed out, who's in the medical field, it's hard to find supplies that don't come from China. And Nate, are the prices going up on medical supplies? That's a concern. So our books are not reconciled to date, and the fiscal officer and myself have concerns about the accuracies of the numbers. That we're pretty good. We feel pretty good about these numbers. I mentioned Tim McCoy, and Diane Bouza, as a state auditor for Special Investigations Unit, has contacted me to talk about our audits and inquire what procedures we put in place to fix a lot of things that we have on our audits. Now, Don, I heard that you have the impression that we have an investment fund that has $1 million or so in it.
I have been corrected.
We don't. This here is all our funds. 1.8, I like how the numbers matched up, Gina, that's awesome. And we don't do investments. If you don't have somebody on your staff that does investments, the state auditor's office has made this wonderful thing called Star Ohio. And this is what I was going to, and Star Ohio, that's managed by them, and anytime you move money over there, they just start giving you a good interest rate, or you get to participate in it without knowing not being a skilled investor. So all these funds, this is all the money we have, $1.8 million. $400,000 stays in our local checking account, and you can easily pass it back and forth. This is all made up of, there's no extra money in there. It's all made up of the money we haven't spent that's allocated, that's appropriated, and reserves. But only half of it, because what we have in here, that $336,000, that's being saved for an ambulance we're going to buy. We got all the money set. Happy to say we got all the money ready for the medic. This is our building fund, so that's that's $600,000 right there. That's not even, that's taken out of the picture. So this is going to decrease because something wacko happened in the recent years, and we didn't spend all the money we could have on this building, and it was hidden somewhere, and then our former fiscal officer then put it in the fund, and the auditor said, why you got $600,000 in your building fund? You should have about a very small amount, just enough to pay your building payment. So I know that's confusing, but you guys might know it, but the millage on your, on this building, the millage that we're collecting got turned all the way down to 0.1 last year. You'd be surprised. I personally paid like $13.90 for my part of this building. They turned it down so they could eat down this. We had 500,000, now down to 300,000. By the end of this year, this will be down to 28,000 because we're gonna make payments on our building of 320,000, but we're only gonna collect like 127. So that don't get caught up in that story. Just know that our general fund last year got $42,000 interest from this fund. It's great, that's why we had our general funds so healthy. However, that's about to really shrink because we're gonna lose 127 from this fund if we give it to TLT. We're going to lose 188 from the auditor taking back our building money, or not taking it back, but spending it down. And when we get the ambulance, as Nate said, next June, it'll be 336,000. So this whole fund is going to decrease. This $1.4 million fund is going to decrease by almost half. So instead of getting $42,000 interest in our general fund, we're going to get $20,000. So that scares me a little too, if we start taking away the reserves in the general fund. And our general fund only has a revenue of $230K annually, mostly from your tax dollars. This year we appropriate $266, so we're already on track to spend $30,000 more than we take in, even as we've been tightening our operations. With care, we should be left with $92,000 in reserves. If that were the case, I'd be happy, but I'd be super careful. I would be happy, but I'd be thinking, you gotta watch this, don't take care of that 92,000. Well, that 92,000 will be there if we put it into the TLT fund. I just have a few more concerns, Chris. So this is how one of your proposals, 2025-13 says, let's deflate the general fund and then just ride it out. Is that what we do? We'll just go, we have everything appropriated for the salaries and everything. Let's just go skinny and let's just hope for the best and go through the year. The other proposal says, let's start recouping some of this money. Let's not pay our trustee and fiscal officer salaries from the general fund. Let's farm it out to the fire fund and the gas tax fund. So this is a line from Chris's proposal, commencing with April 30th, well, not passed, but take 10%. It's standard that you pay trustee and fiscal officer salaries from the general fund. No questions asked, and that's generally how it's done. Now, if you're going to go into other funds, you have to justify it. So, so 10 from the general, 10% from the gasoline fund, and 80% of trustee and fiscal officer salaries, then we would take from the fire fund. And then by not paying them out of the general fund, we'll kind of keep that money in there a little bit. If we do that for the rest of the year, we can recoup about $43,000 in the general fund. But the ORC says each trustee shall certify the percentage of time working on matters to be paid from the township general fund and from other township funds in such proportion as the kind service performed. In other words, in other places it says, if you're gonna take your trustee money and your fiscal officer money anywhere but the general fund, you gotta document it. Now, Chris, I know you've had a lot of experience in doing this. I don't know if you guys had to document it carefully in years before.
It was documented every pay period.
Okay, so here's the thing. Well, we have a funding scheme that is dependent on us spending 80% of our time administering over the fire fund. So we're absolutely dependent on that. So I'm kind of being asked in advance to make time cards, and they are time logs, saying, the money's being counted based on me working 80% of my time in the fire fund and 10% of my time in the gasoline fund for the rest of the year and probably for the year after that. So I feel a very strange, I don't know that I can do that.
You can change your contribution monthly. And there's no time card requirement.
There's no time card requirement. Time log, is there a time log requirement? Well, the recent finding against Harrison Township trustees in Pembroke County for not certifying the percentage of time working on matters to be paid from the township general fund and from other township funds in such proportions of kind service.
That's what we do every month.
On April 8th, 2025, that was just a couple weeks ago, Harrison Township trustees in Preble County, they had a finding against them. They had paid themselves out of the gasoline tax fund and they had not kept proper logs, time logs. It might not have been true during the Kasich years, but I think it's true now because they got slammed. During 23 and 22, so that happened. So then it was being audited in 24. We'll be audited again in 26. Trustees did not always complete certification or time logs. They didn't complete their time logs, Chris. And their salaries were paid from the gasoline tax fund. And due to the lack of certification of time logs supporting the allocation of trustees' pay, the trustees' pay should have only been paid from the general fund in accordance with ORC 505.24. And so the special revenue fund expenditures, which is gasoline tax, were overstated by $13,000 in 23 and $40,000 in 22. But the township declined to record the adjustments due to financial constraints that they had. And additionally, they went back and found out they had done it wrong in 218, 219, 220, 221. Now, where does it say how much they? So the township has not made these adjustments as of the date of this report. It's probably because they're in the red and they don't have any place else to get it from. So, had the township agreed to the adjustments for the current and prior audits, the gasoline fund balance would have been $621,564, and the general fund would have a deficit if things were corrected. They're asking them to correct. They're asking them to make the gasoline tax fund whole because they didn't do their logs correctly. The general fund balance, if they would do that, what is being asked, would have a deficit, would be in the red, $110,000 in 2022 and $90,000 in 2023. So now these trustees who didn't do proper logs to borrow from another fund are facing the specter of being in the red $110,000 in their general fund. So that gives me pause, and I wonder, Chris, you seem casual about how we're going to record this. I don't personally know that I can record 80% of my work being done in the fire station for the next year. And what's weird to me, is that we're not saying, oh, hey, we had this going on this week. Hey, I put in, like, for example, we're going to be interviewing chiefs here soon. I'll be working extra in that department. Yeah, okay. I worked 55% of my time there this month, so take someone out there. But to say in advance, we're putting forth a funding scheme in which retroactively, your time cards have to match it. Time logs, excuse me. You don't believe there will be time logs?
I believe there'll be certification letters or documents, and the 5 years that we did it in the past, every single month there was a certification letter from every single elected official that specified exactly how much time they spent in percentage on a particular fund. That was the requirement. That's what we did.
Okay.
And no one ever said a word about it. I
Okay.
can't speak for some other township.
Okay, so we can do our certification letters. And we can show that Gina and Don and Chris and I spent 80% of our time administering to the firehouse and 10% of our time were the elected officials administering to the gasoline tax fund.
We got a lot of people waiting here. You take it up for about 45 minutes.
I know she has it.
Somebody's got to do it.
It's only been 25 minutes.
Somebody's got to do it. 45 minutes, Chris?
Seems like, never mind.
Go to the next.
Oh, I should have made this. What happened?
That was a link.
Oh, I gotta go back. All right, thank you, guys. This is a page from our most recent audit. And this is a very lengthy audit. This was so 2 counts of significant deficiency in noncompliance for appropriations exceeding estimated resources. And I talked to, again, Diane Booza about this, and he was funny on Monday, last Monday, or it must be 2 weeks ago now. We met on a Zoom call with one of her colleagues and said, let's talk about a few things on this audit. And then we got to this one, a few we had corrected. We got to this one, and I said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. It's like, okay, appropriations exceeded the estimated resource in the cemetery and special levy fire funds by $2,000 and $90,000 respectively for the year ending December 31st, 2022. Appropriating more money than expected or actually received could lead to negative fund balances and monies being used to cover expenses being charged to inappropriate funds or line items. It could also lead to commitments being made without sufficient funds to pay for these commitments. And I told her, oh, we got that. You know, we had a levy, we passed a big levy, we're not gonna do that anymore, we're fine. That day, I came home and I find out Riley Dixon was here for another reason, and he told me about how this land deal had gone through, and that we're going to give $113,000. We're going to appropriate it. We're going to appropriate it from somewhere. And I thought, wow, I just told her we had this under control. I think that's all I have, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, I have one comment. I'm really worried about this. I'm really, really worried about this to the point where I don't know if I could stay and face it. I don't know whether we're going to have enough money to pay our bills in the general fund. And when we do this, paying of elected official salaries and other funds, we probably won't know if we pass that test until our 2026 audit. The Preble County people, they did it in 22 and 23, and they found out this year that they'd done it wrong, and they're asking to be paid back $100,000. So I am making a plea, if there's any way, we have a fire station to run. We have a lot of things to do, and it terrifies me. And for the life of me, I don't know why I mean, there's argument about whether we committed it or not. I don't believe we did. And that's another discussion. If you want to roll the tape, I could send you the link to the video. But if there's any other way you could do this without us, or Don, please. You may look back on this night as the night you could have made a different decision. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything, Ben?
I appreciate your due diligence. And I also appreciate, Chris, you're paying attention in substituting, or not, substitute's the wrong word, offering an alternative to what we discussed in the special meeting. That is resolution 2025-12 versus resolution 2025-13. However, I think this is an extremely important land use decision.
I agree.
And I don't deny what you're saying about adequate reserves. And when there's an extreme situation, which I view Welsh Farm as, it may be an occasion to not follow the standard. But I'm here to listen.
Okay, let me take a minute, please, in brevity. I didn't really expect to have to go into the weeds with everything, but apparently we're a little bit of the way in, so we might as well
Go all the way in.
all the way in. A couple of things, Marilyn mentioned this commitment to the cybersecurity, that's going to go into our budget. That's $25 a month out of the general fund. We have not made a decision on a payroll service.
Okay, 25 out of 600, I'm sorry, out of $600 a month? Okay.
$95 a month, if I recall. No, I'm not $95, you're right. So $125. The payroll service, we haven't even really discussed that much. Use of the rollover, if I hate to sound like the old guy in the room, 28 years, take out the sale of the old firehouse and take out building this firehouse, because there were so many transactions. I cannot remember one time that we ever used any reserve out of the general fund for any purpose. Not
We
once.
used, last year we took in 211,000, no, excuse me, 40,000. Last year we took in $240,000 in
Anyway,
revenue.
anyway,
And we appropriated 296.
Marilyn, I have the floor.
$50,000 last year is what we used out of the general reserves.
No, that's not true.
Did we appropriate 296?
Since
By the end of
she did all the budgeting and all the appropriations for the township last year, she knows these numbers, so hopefully this will go very quickly. But we're a third of the way into the year, 33.33%. Of our general fund, we've spent 21% of the general fund. Now, this is a general fund. We have no equipment, we have no vehicles, we have no air conditioners, we pay the electricity out of the fund, we pay some salaries out of the fund, we pay travel and entertainment out of the fund, we pay a bunch of little other things out of the fund, but we have nothing of substance that could be coming down the pipe. Well, what if this breaks? What if this breaks? What if we need a new this? We don't have this to break, we don't have that to break, and we don't have anything that's running that might quit running. We pay about the same every single month and every single year. We're at 21% of the year. Now, she mentioned the different small funds that I made some recommendations to move some funds around with. First one being the zoning inspector, the zoning administrator's salary, which was appropriated $26,000. We've used less than 20% of that fund so far this year, less than 20%. We're not going to use 80% of that fund for the rest of the year. We're not going to let him work 60 hours a week in order to make up for the
What
money
date
he
do you
hasn't
have
spent.
on your appropriation?
Day before yesterday. So that freed up that 5,000 that I suggested we move. The other salaries, we've talked about this before, that's for the cemetery maintenance. We can move that to Road and Bridge and let them get reimbursed next spring, not a penny out of their pocket. We could take 7,000 out of that. They've only spent 10% of that. Now, I understand because the grass has just started to grow, that's a little bit skewed. Other funds, the 410, 599, the $20,000, we have spent 0.4% of that money
Which
so
one?
far. Not 33%, that's a third of the year.
You said $20,000? Is that one fund?
410, 599.
Yeah, that's weird because that was created.
0.45%. $89.90 out of the 20,000. So at 33%, we got a ways to go. I have discussed this with our fiscal officer, and she feels that with the ability to correctly purchase things out of the different funds as we're going along now, we'll never use anywhere near that $20,000.
But that 20,000 may have.
There's nothing
That
earmarked
was a
in
junk
there.
fund that
There's
may
nothing
have
earmarked
belonged
in
in line items above that. They were whole credit card bills and everything. Gina, that 20,000
We've
may
still
have.
paid all of those, we've paid all those invoices, and we're at 20% of the fund as opposed to 33%. You know, if you I have it written down, but if you use your math and bring this out, 56,000, that makes it 170,000 for the year. If we spend every dime of what has been appropriated, that's 170-some thousand, and we've got a final appropriation of 266. I think there's a couple of bucks.
We haven't spent 170,000 in years. It's crazy.
Oh, that's what you budgeted.
No,
You budgeted,
what have they
and we're,
appropriated?
well, you budgeted and appropriated that.
$266,000.
No, I'm saying we've spent 56,000 in the first third of the year. 56 times 3, 100 and whatever, 60,000. Anyway, okay, let's please get to the public portion of the program. Anyone wishing to speak? Oh, don't put your hands up all at the same time.
I was actually sitting here first.
Oh, okay, well, then there we go.
All right. I am Barbara Krayback. I am just a citizen and a taxpayer. I do live in the unincorporated portion of Miami Township, not in the village, but right next to the construction of the high school. And it's being hoped for by the people, construction on the of a department building. And that, again, that's not really here and there, but what appalls me is to sit here and listen to Chris fiddle with numbers and how to rob Peter to pay Paul, and Don talking about an emergency situation on farmland, and Maryland making perfect fiscal sense. This contribution to TLT is unnecessary. It is a travesty of fiscal good sense. Chris has used the word commitment for this supposed proposed gift, this proposed pledge. Yeah, a pledge to a charity might be an ethical commitment. I can see that. It's not a financial commitment like a mortgage on a building. It's not a commitment like that we make to firefighters that we've hired for a certain amount of money, and we got to pay them that certain amount of money each year. That's their salary. There shouldn't even be any discussion about throwing out that commitment this year. Maybe in the future we'll have money to do that kind of thing, but No, it's not an emergency if we don't get an easement on a piece. Get another field full of weeds along Dayton Yellow Springs Road.
Thank you, Barbara.
Right.
Sam, I guess you'd be next.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, we don't all have all night. I'm doing another meeting that started 15 minutes ago, so I want to tell you where I stand on this for your consideration.
Certainly.
The other funds that you're talking about taking money from, I assume they were the result of a budgetary process that I wasn't involved in, so I have to assume that that was done reasonably, and I'm opposed to tampering with it.
Mhm.
The second thing is, it seems to me that we could look toward some kind of compromise. What I would suggest is you take that $92,000 in the general reserve and give half of it to Tecumseh Land Trust for this year. I know that doesn't fill your commitment that you all have made. And that's the third thing. I think you ought to look at the decision-making process that allowed the commitment to be made without the resolution, before the resolution, when in fact it has to be done after the resolution.
The commitment was made by motion a couple of years ago. Or
That-
whatever it was.
That's where I stand, and I'm going to have to leave.
Okay.
I wanted you to know on all three of those things
Thank you, Sam.
what my position was.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Michelle?
Yep, so I'm Michelle Burns with Tecumseh Land Trust, and I just wanted to thank you all for your partnership over many decades where we have worked together to help fulfill the goals in your comprehensive land use plan. So just to say that Tecumseh Land Trust did consider your motion a commitment to partner with us once again, just like we have done it over many years. And then we acted accordingly with that commitment that we thought was in place and spoke to both donors and potential buyers in good faith that we could enter into contracts with them. So we launched this campaign last summer. We've had many conversations with both donors and potential buyers, and feel like once we met our goal, we kind of had that rug pulled out from under our feet. So I would urge you to find a way to help fund this project. I do believe it is an emergency because we only get one chance to protect land. Once it changes hands, it's out of our control. And we've been working very hard to find a willing buyer to make an offer with the seller. And so I doubt very seriously we'll have this opportunity again. I really appreciate the financial concerns that everyone is voicing, particularly Maryland. And it's been said a couple of times, well, why can't we just get more money from private donations? Everybody is feeling financial crunches. Everybody who's made a donation to us did it by making a sacrifice that we greatly appreciate. People who pledged to us at the end of the year, last year had no idea that the stock market was going to look the way it looks today, but they are standing by their pledges to us. And so I really feel like this is a sacrifice that the community is making, and I would hope that we could all be part of that. But without a commitment from you guys, we cannot enter into more conversations with willing buyers, so we are losing precious time and momentum on this. So I do hope that you can make a decision tonight. And another clarification that I wanted to make is I heard at the meeting last week that the township zoning is protecting farmland, and I just want to be clear that that particular farm, you can get about 14 house lots off of it just without any permission from anybody. And that will be a financial commitment to the township forever if those house lots get sold off. And as many of you might remember that when we do cost of community services studies, residential development is the big loser because it brings in less tax revenue than it requires in services. So just keep all that in mind. This is a long-term investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else care to speak? Teresa?
Okay, I'll try to be. At first, I want to thank the trustees for all the effort that they've made in trying to explain the budgets and coming forth with the proposals. It's evident that you have put enormous amounts of time into trying to serve a community, and I thank all of you for that. I also very strongly support the goals of the Tecumseh Land Trust. I think probably most of us in this room, if not all of us, really care about the work that you've done and understand why it's so important to protect farmland. My husband and I come from farms, and we live across the street from land that has been put in conservation easement through Tecumseh Land Trust, and it's really important to us. That being said, I strongly feel that we can't afford as a township to take money out of the township and donate it to Tecumseh Land Trust. It's not the township's responsibility to do it. It's the responsibility of the township to ensure that we have emergency medical services, that we have firefighters, that we take care of our township roads, our township cemeteries, and zoning. That's the responsibility of the township. And if we can't meet those responsibilities, we have no business whatsoever giving money to anything else. And I really don't think that we can ensure that we can meet the financial responsibilities that we have in the township at this time. The second thing is that I went back and I listened to the meeting from August 5th at which Krista McGaugh came to the trustees and requested that the funds be donated. And at that time it was talked about using the ARPA funds, $113,000, and giving that to Tecumseh Land Trust. A couple things there. That motion was made very quickly and decisions made very quickly, and just put that information aside. But that commitment at that time was that the money would be spent by December 31st of 2024. And that was because it was legally required. My understanding is that it was legally required that ARPA funds, the use of those, be designated by that time. And you can't, once you've designated, you can't play with that. Krista was at that meeting and there was back and forth discussion about it. It was made very clear that that money had to be spent by December 31st. And designated by December 31st, what it would be spent by. And so the money was committed to Tecumseh Land Trust if it could be spent by December 31st of 2024. And there was kind of some laughter at that time that you can hear on the tape, like, oh, it wouldn't be a problem because that auction's gonna happen by then, no problem. Well, by December 31st of 2024, the money wasn't spent, and that money was put then in the fire fund, and that commitment no longer existed. Krista was at that meeting, and she heard that. So if that was misunderstood by you, I'm sorry, but that commitment ended on December 31st of 2024, from what I wasn't here and read in the minutes at that time. So that needs to be said. I think another thing that became clear to me in listening to the August 7, 2024 meeting is that when this proposal was made, there was a request to please slow the train down. That there was a need to understand that decision from a fiscal standpoint and to understand it from a legal standpoint. And Marilyn made that motion. That wasn't heeded. And I think because that wasn't heeded, those concerns fiscally and legally weren't thoroughly vetted. And that's why we found ourselves in an emergency meeting and all of this contention last week. That's what I have to say.
So there's $113,000 extra in the fire fund because it had to be moved from what it was intended for.
I can speak to that.
Yep. I'm Jennifer Rosenberg, sorry.
Okay, before I move on, I have one just additional piece of clarification for the room. I want to keep in mind that townships are required by law to follow a comprehensive plan, land use plan in their zoning. We can't zone anything unless we follow a comprehensive land use plan. Our comprehensive, that includes, and that's guidance for the board also, because we ultimately approve zoning changes. Our comprehensive plan states in writing that it is the obligation of the board to commit to preserve farmland by partnering with conservation
easement organizations like the Land Trust, like the Little Miami Conservancy, and the U.S. Department of Wildlife and Fire, or something like that. It says it in black and white. That's what we're doing. We're following the commitment of our comprehensive land use plan. Jennifer?
Yeah, so a couple things I keep people, first I do have a question about that moving of those funds. They were just basically moved, not intended for some, let me just hold that back. Okay. I keep hearing the word charity. I want to go back to something that Michelle said. Tecumseh Land Trust isn't a charity. It's part of our land use plan, but it's also for all of us. It's for the future of our children. I think we should think of it, what is the worst long-term effect of this decision? And it seems to me, I keep hearing an emergency that we're not going to be able to pay our firefighters or trustees. I don't hear that. It isn't an emergency. I don't think that's the question. So truly, what is the worst thing that can happen if that reserve fund were drained? What is the worst thing that can happen if we don't preserve that land? It's a significant piece of land. It's 185 acres, correct? It has a particular part of Jacoby Creek watershed, which if we protect that protects our water quality. It's not, begging your pardon, a patch of weeds. Our children, our grandchildren should be able to see that and enjoy that. We should be able to follow the vision that was set in the land use plan and by the folks in the 1970s who determined which properties were going to be in that green belt. That stuff's important. Talking about an ethical consideration. What is ethical is that we make too many choices that are not the best for our planet. But not just that, not just from a hippy-dippy perspective, but because of our own health, our own well-being, our own quality of life. If we do not protect that land now, it will not be protected. It will be subdivided. It will cost us more money. It will cost more pollution into our watershed. It is a very short-sighted choice to not support this. But if there is a real danger, then I want to hear about that. I have not heard that yet. So what happens if we deplete that reserve? What is the worst thing that can happen in your son?
If we run out of money in our general fund, we can't pay our bills? That's what happens.
And has that ever happened? And I'm guessing you weigh these two things. This is an unknown. I'm talking right now. I'm happy to hear, but I want to finish what I have to say.
I asked you a question.
I'm sorry. It was a general question to all of you. Okay, I appreciate your work. I did not mean to be offensive. I didn't. Okay. So I guess both things are important. What's going to affect us the most for the longest time? What is going to benefit us the most for the longest time?
Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else?
So I thought you guys were going to get two lawyers' opinions on this. So why are you voting on it without these legal opinions?
I submitted the questions to them after the last meeting, and they haven't been returned yet. They haven't sent the opinions back yet.
Anyone else? Mark?
So, part of this emergency fund, I have a question for Catherine. You've got a unit that is on order for $300,000. Is that an ironclad contract that is what you're going to pay, or is there a potential, especially in today's economy and considering everything that's going on, that would go up 25%?
There is a potential that it could come back and it could come back higher.
So we're not locked in?
Based on the cost of the chassis, it may come back slightly higher.
And as I've said to this board before, I used to own an ambulance company, and I've been in that position where I've had to pay up to 25% more because and this was in the 70s, well, the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, that it came back 25% more because inflation went up by that amount. So when you order a unit, that doesn't mean that's what it's going to cost you when it gets delivered.
And when did we order it? And when did we first order it?
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
That's $87,500, 25%.
And so in answer to your question, that's the kind of emergency that could happen that is an unknown. And unfortunately, in today's economy, we don't know what, and I speak as a businessman, we don't know what's going to happen.
Anyone else in the room?
I'm Kelly Ann Tracy, and I have spent the last 40 years in medical and finance. And part of it is I actually build for fire stations as well. And I am petrified at the thought of you guys walking into your supply room and it being empty. And right now, that's a really real chance. I mean, all of us have lived through COVID when we walked into the grocery stores and we saw empty shelves. And I have several of my clients that I work for, and I just audited their supplies, and I only found one thing, and that was Kimberly diapers that didn't state that it came from China. Do you know how much of your supplies come from China?
I don't, but I can imagine most of it.
Okay, so the great majority. Can you tell us how much your supplies currently cost you on a yearly basis? Just your supplies?
I can't. So we do 1-for-1 exchange with the hospitals. So that cost is taken on by the hospitals.
Okay, so do you foresee that being an issue then if say, and the other is that the tariffs, I mean, we have no idea how high these tariffs are gonna go. We have no idea how high they could go. Our hospitals, even during COVID, our hospitals didn't have equipment available. I mean, we have no idea where we're going right now, and this is extremely irresponsible. The other thing that I want to say is by Chris's own admission, this woman is your expert. She, for the last 3 years, has taken on your budget and all the expenses and has worked with this woman here to figure it out. Not you, her. But you totally disregard what she tells you. Completely disregard. In that meeting in August, she said, whoa, let's just take a minute. You weren't going to spend that money until December. Let's just take a minute and look to see what we're actually promising. Can we do this? Can't we do this? And the two of you completely blew her off. You immediately, within 15 minutes, decided that you were going to do that. And obviously, you didn't have a clue knowing what you're doing. Because now we're here, finding out you couldn't use the money that you thought to, and you're going to steal from all these other avenues in order to be able to fulfill what you think is your promise. It's outrageous.
Just for a little defense, for 28 years, I, by myself, set the budget for Miami Township. I, by myself, set all the appropriations for the township. 28 years. I've tried to include other members of the board and have been very successful with Don and Marilyn in sharing that responsibility in the last couple of years. But by no means do I know nothing about budgets or appropriations. I know everything about budgets and appropriations. Anyone else have a speak? David?
David Newhart. I live in the unincorporated parts of the township on a large farm, and I'd just like to say that there are times to stretch, there are other times to be conservative in budgeting, and I would suggest this is a time, if there is ever going to be a time to stretch. The Welsh farm represents a large amount of road frontage on Dayton Yellow Springs Road. One of the things that makes this township special is a great combination of the village of Yellow Springs, the village of Clifton, and agricultural land. Once that property goes, if it's not protected, then it's going to change the whole nature of the appearance, the less ag land we have in the township, the harder it is to farm what's left, because you've got to have big equipment, you've got to have people that are spraying, you've got to have all sorts of things that aren't necessarily popular and hard to do with a build-up township. And not to mention what Michelle mentioned, which is that the cost of servicing residential properties, like all those frontage lots, is actually in excess of the tax revenue, additional tax revenue that comes in. So it's going to cost us, the taxpayers, more if that land isn't protected and gets developed. I think this is a rare, almost once in a generation opportunity to protect a significant piece of the township's ag land. You know, we stepped up 25 years ago, 26 years ago, and did the same thing on Whitehall Farm. And if that hadn't been done, I mean, we know because we saw what was the results in the auction of the backup bidders, and everything along 68 would have been owned by a home developer from Centerville. And so it's if there's a time to stretch, I just encourage the trustees to stretch now. Thanks.
Just 1 second. If anybody doesn't know, David is probably the foremost expert in Miami Township on land use, agricultural use of the land. I mean, he's only got 700 acres that he farms. Conservation easements. He was the driving force and the linchpin for obtaining the conservation easements on Whitehall Farm. Don't discount what David has to say.
And what, Chris, if I could add one other thing to that, the magic of conservation easements, which is what Tecumseh Land Trust is trying to do here, is not purchasing property and taking it out of the tax base. It's protecting the property while at the same time allowing it to be used for productive use, which is agriculture, or not weeds.
I'm sorry, but how, if it's being sold by the farmer who doesn't want to farm it anymore, how is it kept agricultural?
The farmer who owned it and had it farmed died.
Yeah.
And that's why it's being sold, because the kids don't want to farm it anymore.
Yeah, so how is it protected farmland?
Because whoever would buy it with an easement would farm it. I mean, the easements limit the use of the property only to ag uses. And so that's how it would work. The land trust with this fund, all the money that's been raised from private individuals, from the village, and hopefully from the township, would purchase the development rights on the property in essence, and the underlying property could still be used for ag, and we'd team with a buyer, an ag buyer for the property to keep it in agriculture.
Anyone else have a question or a comment? Lauren? Sorry, Laurel.
I have really two questions and one suggestion, if that's okay. I don't envy any of you the conversation that's happening right now. So I guess my first question is just a clarification of, in October when the motion was made to budget for these funds, did that, from the 2025 budget, did that negate the motion that was made in August? I mean, I look at...
What happened in October was?
October 7th was a regular meeting in which the motion was made to add the previously approved conservation easement set aside to a 2025 budget item. So that's just a clarification for me in terms of how you all understood.
That's how I understood it.
Previously approved what?
So,
may I read from the minutes?
Yes, please.
Trustee Moyer moved to add the previously approved 113,000 conservation easement set aside from the August 5th, 2024 meeting to a 2025 budget item. A brief discussion reviewed its original passage, the ARPA funds designated to cover it, and the need to have said ARPA funds transferred and appropriated by December 31st, 2024. Trustee Moser seconded and motion carried.
Yeah, so my clarification was when it was moved to, at the time I understood that meant that you all were not taking the money
correct
from ARPA funds.
There was a follow-up.
We were not taking the money from what?
From the ARPA funds because you couldn't.
Taking it to what? Well, we have ARPA funds. We're taking it where?
I don't know. You were the one who moved to budget for
budget. Oh, we were putting it into the general.
There is a
fund.
follow-up.
Gotcha.
Trustee Hollister presented the lengthy resolution 2024-31, amendment of resolution 2022-16, which was the ARPA final rule. Trustee Moyer summarized in light of the just passed motion. She then moved to adopt resolution 2024-31. Trustee Mucha seconded, the motion carried unanimously.
So did you all understand that at that point when it was, moved to a 2025 budget item, that meant at the end of the year, that commitment expired?
Well, no. What, this is what happened. They still wanted to give it to Tecumseh Land Trust, but there were 3 reasons why Tecumseh Land Trust was never eligible for that, including the run-out date and the fact that things had narrowed. And it's very complicated to give this award to a nonprofit, much more complicated than putting it into our own operations. It requires all kinds of certifications of you guys and stuff. And I was willing to participate in a situation where we claim it as a revenue loss for ourselves, and we put it in our general fund. And when I went to, as I said before, when I went to a conference of Township Association conference, they pretty much said, yeah, use it as a revenue loss, that's the easy button. They made this final rule where if you use it just for simply revenue loss for your own operations, everything is simplified. So I was willing to participate in a situation where we say, yeah, we got revenue losses in our general fund, only to find out later next year, oh, look, we have an extra $100,000 in our general revenue fund. It was somewhat of a legal shell game.
And the revenue loss category requires you to use that general fund money for, if you are putting it in your general fund, it has to be used for administrative costs.
Well, it has to be, it would have had to been used for something in the general fund. If it's put in the fire fund, they have to use something in the fire fund. And I was doing that because my colleagues had voted to give it to them, and I actually wasn't confident that it would be done right and that we might lose the money. So I talked to lawyers and I did this. And the lawyers were like, yeah, put it in the general fund. And then, say you're going to do for this, and, then we'll. And then the Treasury started contacting us because we hadn't obligated it yet. By December. And when I talked to them, I said, okay, we're thinking of putting it in our general fund for revenue loss. And they said, what? And they both said on a Zoom call, red flag, red flag, red flag. I said, oh, can we do that? I know I told the story before. We can't tell you what to do with it, but that's a red flag for us that it's going in the general fund. Really? Because originally, which these two did, we had it in our fire fund, and we were going to pay for first responders. They said, there you go, there you go. I said, oh, but not in our general fund? That'd be a red flag. And so what they were conveying to me, that probably wouldn't be a good idea to, I'm going to use the word, launder that money in the general fund. And so I said, this is crazy. Let me go back to you guys. We had it in the fire fund, and they agreed. And at that time, we didn't know if this deal was even going to happen. And we all agreed in a special meeting that we would go ahead and put it in the fire fund. And it took the weight off my shoulders because I was no longer participating in something that might have been a legal shell game, unless we got audited and they heard us on videotape talking about giving it to a land trust and things like that. And I thought, I'm learning a lot, and I'm so glad that I'm not going to participate in that now.
Well, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you?
Nope.
Well, with regard to kind of the reason why I asked that question is to kind of clarify the circuitous nature of what it sounds like this whole, the agreements and the commitments that were made at different points, different things were said, different things were understood. So with that in mind, if you get a legal opinion from your counsel or the prosecutor, I think you sent this resolution to Briggs and Johnson, and did you say also Greene County prosecutor? if you get an opinion from them tomorrow that says, oh, this is not a good idea, but we passed the
It's my understanding that we wouldn't be voting until we get the legal opinion.
Okay, that's all I
I
wanted.
don't know how my others understand it.
That's a good question. I think it should be asked.
Thank you, Lauren.
Answered.
Before you go on, I just want to, I mean, we have a little different group here than we had at our last meeting, and I was hoping it might get in the local newspaper that I wanted to make it very, very, very clear that since we began this process with Whitehall Farm and up till today, and we're going to go back and forth about this ARPA funds, but the way this resolution is written, this is using general fund money, not ARPA fund money. Okay, but up until today, not one penny of about approximately $500,000 of contributions from the township to the land trust for conservation easements, not one penny came from property tax or any levy money. Anyone else have a question or comment? Oh, I'm sorry, John, you were next.
John Hudson, I just simply like to support the acquisition of the property. The village and township have been at this for at least 70 years, maybe more. And if this isn't accomplished, all that previous effort will be for naught. This is kind of the final keystone, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So to me, it's critical, and it's worth the financial risk, and I greatly appreciate fiscal responsibility. I don't argue with that. But this, if we want Yellow Springs to be Yellow Springs, we're gonna have to support this. So that's my thoughts. Thank you for all your efforts.
Kate?
Chris, I'd just like to understand, I've heard you on a couple of occasions say, not one penny from this and this.
Yep.
From whence?
It was from estate tax money that was levied by the state of Ohio on people who have passed away onto their financial estates. A portion of their financial estates was directed to the general fund of the state of Ohio. And from there, it was distributed by law to all the political subdivisions within where the person passed away. Either the county, the village, the city, whatever, or the township. And that's the money we used up until the point where the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, decided to, and I didn't disagree with it because I didn't like the state tax, my idea, but in their infinite wisdom, they decided to do away with estate tax procurement.
Mm-hmm. So if we made this commitment today, from whence would this money come?
Well, originally it was going to come from the grant from the federal government for COVID relief money. Now we've moved it here, we moved it there. Maybe we could use it for fire, or should use it for fire because it doesn't fit this category or that category. But so if it was cleanly done to begin with, it would not be property tax or levy money. Right now, that money is sitting in the fire fund. That money is theoretically for use in the fire fund because that's where it is. But it was not property tax money. That was COVID grant money. So we will be using general fund money for the first time because we can't cleanly make that commitment whole through the ARPA funds. But we can make it whole, period. Anyone else have anything? Speak now.
Dean Pilata, village resident. I've got a couple questions. When was the comprehensive land use plan last updated? You can get back to that. It's just a question to throw out there.
212?
212, yeah.
213, 212, somewhere. It's on their, it's on their radar.
You have a renewal levy that's coming up in November that probably should have come up tomorrow. Why didn't it? And I think the village is also going to have a renewal levy coming up in November.
The Secretary of State did not like the language of the ballot language.
So we're in this conundrum now. So now you're potentially going to vote in favor of giving away the money, and again, that's your guys' decision. That's on you. That's what you have to live with and abide with. That's on your shoulders. In the big picture, though, how do you think this is going to play out with the residents of the township, knowing that you've given money away and you've got a renewal coming up, and the potential of that levy not passing? My question is, what happens then in the big picture? Thank you.
The village, for as long as I can remember, and as long as I thought, support a fire and rescue facility in their town. They understand that if they fall down with a heart attack, they'd like to have somebody qualified to come to their aid in as short amount of time as possible for the least amount of money spent. They have supported tax levies for the fire department consistently and overwhelmingly, 85% plus for most of the levies. I think every informed taxpayer and voter in the township understands that this is not a volunteer organization. We don't have volunteer policemen, we don't have volunteer judges or lawyers, or we don't have volunteer, we don't have a volunteer fire department. That's just the way it is in this day and age. We have to have quality people, we have to have quality people who are paid, and we have to have some place for them to do their work. And that's what we have provided for them. And let me tell you, the run times from 1990, 2000 to today, it's just night and day. I mean, what's our average run time? Maybe like 4 minutes to response time? 4 minutes. I mean, that's well under the national average and the requirements for the associations and all the rest of that stuff. And I'll guarantee you don't want to wait. If you're lying on the floor with your heart bleeding out or whatever it's going to do, you don't want to wait 20 minutes for somebody to get there and maybe be a basic EMT to help you stay alive. You want a qualified paramedic there on site in 4 minutes or less and keep you alive till you get permanent relief from it. And that's what we do here. And that's what we've done all along. Anyone else?
I just want to comment on that as well. The levy will be a renewal, and right now it's collecting $580,000 per year. So just to put it in perspective with the costs we're talking about.
And no new taxes, anyone. These are exactly the same rates that we've been asking for 20 plus years, I believe.
So I'd like
3.8 mils. I think that's been, we had a 2-year period where we were really tight. And so we put it like a 1 mil or a half a mil on to get the ship right again. But then we took that back off and went back to the 3.8, and it hasn't changed since. And let me tell you, it has been difficult. Today, through the vigilance of the Board of Trustees and the fire department and our consultant, who is absolutely, totally qualified. His resume in the fire industry is just incredible. We have gotten to the point where our fire fund is balanced. We have approximately $350,000 reserve in it that we're keeping in case payroll gets out of hand, which it doesn't seem to be. We seem to be on the right track. For almost 6 months, we've been exactly where we wanted to be in order to be budgeted, to make the budget correctly for the whole year. Guys, we're almost at 2 hours, so
I was interrupted by you, so I'd like to finish my sentence.
I'm sorry.
So it's a $580,000 levy compared to the 127.
113, please.
What about that? What about that, Chris?
If we give them the 127, Michelle will write us a check for the difference.
What about that? Why did you go the extra mile to take?
Because I wanted to make sure there was
money out.
I wanted to make sure there was enough money, and I wanted to make
Put
sure
it in
that
a
we
fund where you're allowed to use it and give it to TLT. Why did you go an extra $35,000?
In the eventuality, these funds are not utilized for set purpose funds. We released for a general fund purpose.
But what if?
We've only obligated 113.
Is that how you understand it, Michelle? That
obligated for this?
I'd like to know, is that what you understand our contribution, if it happens, will be, is 113? Is that what that's what you understand?
Anyone else?
That's what you understand?
Yes.
Yeah, we got some.
Yeah, talking about the bigger picture, we talked about the fiscal and the ethical, but think about the political aspect of this issue. The average person on the street really doesn't know what the township does. People in this room, we all have a pretty good idea. But most of the people, you go downtown and talk to people, they don't know what the township does. But what they're gonna know next year or 2 years from now, whenever they go to the polls, they're gonna know what the township didn't do. And I think it would be a good idea, I go with Sam Young, find a way to participate in this thing. It's not gonna kill anybody. A little bit here, a little bit there, be a part of it. It'll pay off in the voting booth.
Sam's suggestion was a compromise at the lower amount, half. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Bitsy?
Well, I want to thank the township staff, for the involvement of the community and being able to voice concerns, positive and towards Tecumseh Land Trust and concerns about the economy and physically being responsible with our money. I agree if there's some way to give some kind of amount that that should be a consideration. I'm really concerned about the economy and medical supplies, equipment down the road. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think giving them that total amount is very concerning to me as a resident. And just want to share that.
Thank you, Bitsy. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Lori Asplund. I really support Tecumseh Land Trust. I have for 20 plus years, and I agree the green belt is very important. And particularly because of smart growth principles, that we want a denser population in places like the villages of the township and green area around it. So anywhere where services have already been extended, where there's sewer lines, where there's water lines, that's where you want the residential growth to happen primarily. So I really do understand the value of this particular piece of land. I am always concerned about commodity. I grew up on a farm, commodity production. I watched growing up in the 60s through the 90s in Iowa. I watched the way that traditional farming moved to almost exclusively commodity and mass like hog production. And so I am concerned about the way that cornfields and bean fields negatively affect rivers. So I want to be clear that when you conserve it, that's important, but it doesn't have a neutral effect on the rivers. But I do support the idea of it. However, the fiscal concerns are extremely serious. You do not drain your reserves. And particularly, I don't think you drain them when we are in these very uncertain times. We have not experienced a presidency like we are experiencing, right? So much in our area's economy depends on federal funding, and so many of the residents of our economy are dependent on federal funding, we are not in normal times. And when I was on council, we had a lot of local money, and we used all of our estate taxes also for a green space fund. And how to do that properly is, of course, you create a green space fund and you designate it. You do that right in the budget very clearly at the beginning of the year, so you're not stuck with this feeling like a shell game. You put a proposal out at the very last minute, 2 proposals at the same time on a Sunday morning that residents can't read and can understand, right? And it is our money in this case, right? And I'm worried about when you promise somebody a salary and you're going to take $5,000 from the fund that.
No, we're not doing that.
Well, okay.
We are not taking his salary away from him.
Well, you're using the fund that his salary is appropriated from.
He cannot bill that amount of money.
Well, all I'm saying.
He's not allowed to bill that amount of money.
Well, if he used the 20 hours a week they've allotted him, he will.
Not from now on, he would. It's only you, 15% of it. Anyway,
so I would suggest, I would like to finish.
Okay.
I would like to not be interrupted. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I spoke to someone on council and asked them about their green space fund. They have additional monies in that fund beyond what they appropriated. I do think it's a red flag when you get $113,000 in federal monies that have very strict rules about it. And then you say you're not using it for that purpose, but then you are using it for that same exact weird figure is exactly what you're appropriating. If I were an auditor, I'm not an auditor, but if I were, that seems a very obvious red flag. So again, I actually really support this project. I really want it to happen. It is very important. I am very dismayed that this is the process that this has come to. This isn't how it's supposed to work. You create the green fund in advance, years in advance, because you don't know when it can happen, because these things happen. They didn't think it was even going to happen in December, and then here it is May, and now it's happening. So you need that fund appropriated in advance. You need it to be, and you need to figure that out in advance. So that is why I believe waiting for legal advice, and particularly if you decide on the 113,000, that is the number that you have to give. That is impossible to say work with council and get money from council's fund, which has, I believe, over $260,000 in it, to see if they can help make up some of the difference. But I definitely think you voted to get legal advice. You have not gotten legal advice. You should get that legal advice. And ideally, maybe some auditing advice, because that feels like a red flag. And thinking about the voters, showing fiscal care with the finances that are entrusted to you is really a bottom line. And you are statutorily obligated to things like paying firefighters, things like paying your zoning inspector, things like paying yourselves even. Those are statutory obligations. The comprehensive land use plan in the village or here, and as you know, I served 2 terms on the village. That is it is an important document. It's a guiding document, but it isn't a statutory obligation. So it's not a legal obligation in the same way. And there are important obligations that go beyond legal obligations. But I strongly urge you not to fund the full $113,000, to leave yourself some cushion under these Project 2025 times where our federal government is being dismantled in very scary ways. Leave cushion in your funds, please. I think you can support it without draining that reserve.
Thank you, Lauren. Anyone else?
I just have a brief. So I am, I'm a fan of what Tecumseh Land Trust does. I think the preservation of farmland And keeping it in agricultural use is one of the most important things we can do for our planet. I think we've all mentioned here, well, several of us have mentioned already, that the green space around Yellow Springs is incredibly important to maintain just from a economic perspective. That it significantly contributes to the economy in Yellow Springs and the surrounding area. And if we aren't protecting that, we're gonna regret it. Fiscal responsibility, though, is important. It sounds there was a lot of emotion and sensationalism in what was demonstrated here today, and I don't think that sound decisions can be made in that type of environment. So if you guys aren't making a decision tonight, even though Tecumseh Land Trust needs a decision as quickly as possible, I would recommend, it seemed like there were different understandings of how much money, and Chris has been doing this for a really long time, so he's comfortable. You're newer, right? Not saying you don't know what you're talking about, Marilyn, but you are newer. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of information to look at. It sounded like you were coming from two different angles. So if you cannot come to a decision tonight, I think that you should take the time, maybe in a working session or something like that, to make sure you're both on the same page, because Chris is looking at expenditures to date and how they're comparing to the budget as a whole, and that is key, because it points to where extra money will be sitting at the end of the year. And it's important to look at those things. I've been doing budgeting and finance and program management for 20 plus years, and you can budget all you want, but then you get down to the end and find, oh, okay, well, I didn't need 75% of that, or whatever. That can happen. So I think you guys need to find a way to stand by your commitment, but do it safely. And if that means having a work session instead of having it in a meeting like this, I would recommend that, because you guys clearly aren't on the same page.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else? Not hearing anyone else. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce Resolution 2025-12. I'll read the enabling part, simply because we've gone over ad infinitum the working part of it. It reads, whereas the Board of Trustees of Miami Township shall commit funds by resolution, this one, in the amount of $113,000 in partnership with the Tecumseh Land Trust towards the acquisition of conservation easements on all or part of the township parcels referred to as the, quote, Welch Farm. And whereas in order to ensure adequate funding is available for the township participation, adjustments to the township 2025 budget are necessary. We've gone over those quite a bit.
So which resolution are you?
That's 2025-12. I'm introducing it. Is there a motion for approval?
Well, that's also the same introduction as 2025-13.
Mm-hmm. Which is not being introduced. 12 is being introduced.
The difference was 13.
I understand the difference.
Okay, so far.
What is 13?
13 is what was reflected.
No, that's 12. This is the one. The one
No,
that,
you did two.
no.
You reflected on both 13 and 12.
No. 13, the only difference is 13 would do all the same transactions as far as getting the money for you guys for TLT.
13 would not draw salary from other funds. And
13 would not draw salaries from other funds. They would just leave a very fragile, it would just leave the general fund alone and not recoup anything for it.
I'm prepared to move adoption of 2025-13.
Is there a second?
He said 13.
You said 13?
Yes.
You said 12?
12.
Oh,
12 is on the
So
table.
so I'm not saying anything about 12.
Right.
we didn't discuss 13 yet. I mean, with luckily, they're 75% the same, and it's the last part that's different. 13 would simply take out all the money in the reserves, give it to Tecumseh Land Trust, and then let the general fund give it a go without recouping anything from other funds. it would be a shriveled down, it would go from, and our reserves would be gone, and 35,000 of line items would be gutted, for a total of, well, he says 113, but he's taking out. That's what I don't get. If you're doing 113, why are you taking out 35 extra thousand? I just don't get that.
Okay, I'm going to introduce Resolution 2025-13. Again, I'll read the enabling part of it. The rest of it has been explained. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Manatee Township shall commit funds by resolution in the amount of $113,000 in partnership with the Townships Land Trust towards the acquisition of conservation easements on all or part of the township parcels referred to as the quote Wells Farm. And whereas in order to ensure adequate funding is available for the township participation, adjustments to the township 2025 budget are necessary. Is there a motion?
I move adoption of resolution 2025-13.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, I thought we were getting legal advice first.
Like everything else, we'll take things as they come.
I would like to change the spelling of Welsh.
I hope this doesn't include findings and, never mind.
All right, I'm going to double check that just for
W-E-L-C-H.
Yeah.
I think that was the grapes, but that's neither here nor there. Any further discussion? Hearing none, may we vote, please?
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2025-13, committing funds in the amount of $113,000 in partnership with Tecumseh Land Trust toward acquisition of conservation easements on the Welsh Farm. Mr. Halliford?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
No.
Thank you. We will be moving through item 11 to item 12, which is new business. First on that is the Girl Scout flower field. Trustee Hollister, presentation.
The Girl Scout troop leader had said they would be interested in 5x5, 5x8 pollinator plant bed. They would pay for the plants, they would tend it. I sent you an email. I don't know if you had time to look at it. We want to allow that on our property.
I would support your request.
Sure.
Does it matter where? I'm sure it does matter.
In the general area that you're talking about, I don't think it matters.
That is over by Marshall Street.
Yeah. It's down in Swale or up Holiday, but it's all good farmland.
I described, I would remove the sod. I'd like it if we could use topsoil that's piled at our garage from graves.
I'm sure Dan could spare a couple of buckets worth of grave.
And then, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years ago, there were neighbors who said they would be interested in helping, but I don't know that at this time. The Girl Scouts are enthusiastic after planting that tree on Earth Day. They like the idea of continuing.
Okay, look forward to it.
I don't need a motion or just information?
No, we just kind of all agreed. Not a big project. The next one, Village of Clifton, in parentheses, it says Don.
I think it's, I asked Gina to make sure this was on the agenda because the council secretary of Village of Clifton contacted me and they already brought up their business.
Okay, so this is what we discussed earlier today. Okay, thank you. Any other new business? Any old business? I'm scared. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
We are moved by acclamation. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. I'm sorry that you're still here at 7:30.
Well, with the